Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Omolabake Olagunjuwu. I am a senior program associate with the Creative Economy Practice, and I am based at the Lagos office. You are welcome to the Fashionomics Africa Accelerator online program. Today, we will be covering how to set up and manage a team effectively. Kindly note that translations are available in English, French, Portuguese, and Arabic. We request that you look for the round interpretation icon at the bottom of the screen to select your preferred language. Today's session will run for 1 hour, 30 minutes with a training session followed by question and answer session. In today's session, your facilitator will lead you on what yet to be taught. Please turn your cameras on if you can and share in the chat what you are looking to get out of the session. Before we start, here are some ground rules. Switch on camera if you can. Use the chat box to ask questions. Raise hand if you want to say something. What we discuss here stays here. Mute your microphone unless you want to speak. Participate actively. Give space to others to participate. Please ensure that your Zoom name matches your registration name. This is for the purpose of taking attendance. Attendance will be taken anytime during the session. So again, we ask you to ensure that your Zoom name matches your registration name so that you are not marked absent. Today we'll be having we have the honors of having two facilitators. Let me introduce them briefly. Oyinkansola Daramola. She's the People Manager, Culture and Engagement at Co-Creation Hub, Lagos, Nigeria. She majors in talent management, organizational structure, and employee engagement. She had over 5 years of experience working with FMCGs, consulting, and oil and gas. Oyinkansola likes food and music. Welcome, Oyinkansola. Our second facilitator is an award-winning fashion stylist, creative entrepreneur, and fashion influencer. She's a faculty at Istituto Moragoni in Milan, Strathmore Business School, and United States International University. She is a corporate trainer for personal branding, image, and grooming. Fashion columnist at the Sunday Nation. Alumni of the Cherry Blay Women in Business Program, November 2020. National consultant for International Trade Center Accelerator Program that mentors and supports local fashion brands. She is a creator of the Social Sunday Fashion Brunch series at the Social House that supports Made in Kenya fashion and creative economy. Let's welcome Connie Alosh. These are two facilitators for today. And after the 1 hour, 30-minute session, just as we have communicated to you earlier, we'll be having a 30 minutes to talk about the Moodle platform, and it will be an avenue for you to share your complaints and how you would like us to help you in accessing the Moodle platform and utilizing the Moodle platform. Without further ado, I present to you Oyinkansola Daramola as she leads the first session of today's training. Welcome, Oyinkansola. Good to have you on this call.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the introduction and welcome to another session. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'll be speaking on the fundamentals of building and growing a team. The structure of this is I'll go through the slides. Please, if you have any questions along the way, note them down so that I can answer them at the end of this session. Right, so I'll be speaking on this from a human resource perspective, and we'll just dive right into it. So it's going to be a 5-part conversation. I will be touching on before recruitment, basically you building your talent strategy. I then go on to speak on the recruitment process, drafting a job description, onboarding, which is after you have successfully hired the person, managing teams, and of course, like I said, a question and answer session, right? So before recruitment, defining the recruitment process. Essentially, recruitment is getting skilled people to work for you to help deliver your goals, your objectives, your business strategy, right? So before you carry out any recruitment, you need to know what it is you're trying to achieve as a business. And that's where defining your business strategy comes in. So what are you trying to achieve? Say you have a fashion house, maybe you're new, maybe you're established, and you're thinking, okay, this year I want to expand, or in the next 2 to 3 years, I want to expand. You're thinking growth, right? Say you're in one city, you want to move to 5, you want to move to 10. That's your plan, and the strategy is the how of getting the what. So your strategy is the how, and your vision or your goals are the what. So you need to define what that business strategy is. So if it's growth, is it through, typically it could be through, maybe mergers and acquisitions, what is your plan in terms of getting to where you need to go? So that's your business strategy. In this case, it may be that there's a fashion house in the neighboring state, in the neighboring country. Maybe the business is not as viable as it used to be, and the owner wants to sell out. Is that something that you want to take into cognizance in terms of the vision of your brand, right? So that's the most important thing at this point, is defining your business strategy. What are you trying to achieve, and how are you going to achieve that, right? So say it's growth, say it's expansion. Sometimes it's cost saving, because your strategy will inform your entire recruitment process. So the next thing is to define your corporate culture. There are very different corporate cultures. Culture is interesting because you can enter a place, a company, a space, and you can just tell by the aura. You can tell, okay, this is a place that has young people. This is a place where I have to sit right. It's a more corporate organization. It's the difference between, entering a bank, for example, and any other typical place, right? So basically, organizational culture is what the personality of that place is, the personality of that business. So you need to define what your culture would be. Do you want people to come into your space, into your fashion house, and into your store? And do you want your salespeople to be very prim and proper? Do you have a script that you want them to go through, or do you want them to just be smiling, funny with potential clients? What is the vibe that you want in your establishment? And the reason why this matters in recruitment is you want to pick people who best match that strategy. So knowing your business strategy and also understanding what your corporate culture is would aid the entire process. The next thing, I'll speak on prioritizing your current needs before moving to a job analysis. So prioritizing your current needs is, say you have chosen to expand over the next 5 years. What is the most important thing to do? What can you accomplish in the next year, in the next 6 months? So you need to prioritize your needs, and of course you need to perform a job analysis. So what is a job analysis? This is essentially you understanding what the job is in terms of the role, in terms of the skill. So what skills are required for this job? What knowledge is required for this job? What abilities are required for this job? So you need to create a brief, essentially. So if you have a seamstress now, so when it comes to job analysis, you think of the job and then you think of the person. So what's the component of the job? Whoever it is in this role, male or female, I need them to be able to do this. I need them to know this. So that's a quick explanation of what a job analysis is. Yes, so like I said, the nature of the job, right? What is the job made of? What are the people, or who are the people required? How many people are required? What's the capacity um, of your company? How much can you make realistically, while still turning a profit? So how many people do you need? How many seamstresses do you need? How many designers do you need? In terms of qualification, like I said, what do they need to know? Does it have to be a 4-year degree? Does it have to be a diploma? If you're looking for an accountant, for example, maybe you want them to have the financial qualification. Like globally, it's ACCA. Here in Nigeria, it's ICANN. So, what are the qualifications that you need for every job in your organization? Even if it's a small job, maybe there's just three of you, four of you there. You had an idea when you were speaking to whoever it was you hired, and you knew what they needed. Of course, every organization has a structure, but most a structure is, who does what, who does that person escalate to, who does that person speak to, who do they report to. So that's an organizational structure. It could be a flat organizational structure. It could be hierarchical, depending on the size of your business, and of course, depending on your business strategy, right? Then what is the relationship between that job and your general organizational structure? Like I said, if it's a smaller business, it's easier, right? You have a store manager and you have, say, the front desk officer. So the front desk officer reports to the store manager, who reports to, maybe the owner of the business. Sometimes you may have a creative director also reporting to the owner of the business, right? And like I said, what are the conditions required? Some jobs are weekends, some jobs are 9 to 5, some jobs are on a shift basis. So this is generally you stepping back and analyzing what is required for this job, right? So once the job analysis is done, this determines the job description and specifications, recruitment and selection criteria, and even salaries to be paid. So let's speak quickly on the recruitment process. So the first thing, everything I just said, is preparation. You haven't done anything, you haven't put a job ad out, nothing. Everything I said is preparation. Along with preparation comes, let me step back a bit, the job description. So what is the job description? It's just what tells, it's a document that says this is what you'd be doing on this job. Specifications say these are the knowledge, skills, and abilities I need for the job. Recruitment is you actually looking for the people, and selecting is you picking them, right? So, but like I said, that is all preparation. The next thing you move to is sourcing. So sourcing is a term we use in recruitment to basically, it just means looking. So you could source through various channels. You could source through referrals. Oh, you need a creative designer. Oh, I know someone who is. You have sourced the candidate. It could be through formal platforms like LinkedIn, where you go and say, oh, I'm looking to hire XYZ. It could be on a job board where you post. So something like LinkedIn, something like Indeed, where you put it up and say, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking to hire. And sometimes people use agencies. So an agency might have qualified candidates. So you go to them and say, I'm looking for an accountant, I'm looking for a creative designer, I'm looking for a store manager. What do you have? So those are some um, channels through which sourcing of candidates can be done. So say you've sourced and you got 100 people, you then need to screen. How are you screening? You're screening based on the criteria that we had picked before. So for this cycle, I'd use an example of, like I said, the creative designer, for example. So you have gotten 100 creative designers. Now you need to screen. You have already said you need someone with 2 years experience, someone who has worked in a store before, someone who has worked on designs for men and women, unisex designs. So you then look through all the candidates that you have and say, this, we have 100, so maybe this 20 fit exactly what I need, right? So in the screening process, you're interviewing them, you're asking them about the experience, you're asking them about the kind of place they'd like to work, which ties back to the company culture. You're asking them, you're asking them both um, questions about the competencies, but you're also asking them about behavioral indicators. If your business is one that is very collaborative, you want someone who enjoys working with teams and isn't just on their own. So that's essentially what happens with screening. At this point, some people may even look at what the potential candidates want to earn in terms of salary. So, can I afford this person? Can I not afford to pay them? You know, and all that. So that's what it is, just screening. And then we move on to selecting. So I've screened 100 people. I like 20 of them, and I only need 5. So you then go through all of them using all the benchmarks, and you pick your top 5, right? So now I've picked my 5. I'll move on to hiring them. You know, this is sending offer letters, letting them know that you've given them the position, you know, and then onboarding. We'll get more into this as I go on. But that is basically the process when it comes to building a team. Every single team built went through this, you know, no matter the fashion, whether it was through referrals, this is basically the holy grail of team building, right? So what should you look out for when you're hiring? You should look out for the technical skills. Does the candidate have the technical skills required for the role? Can they do the job, right? Can they do the job? It's really that um, easy in terms of summarizing. Can they do the job? Do they have the soft skills required for the job? So soft skills could include things like communication, you know. So can this person communicate effectively? Can I leave this person with potential clients? Can they speak to potential clients over the phone? Do they have good negotiating skills? I'm trying to sell 100, yards of this fabric. I know that if I give X person the phone, they would have them, sell. So that's interpersonal skills. Then we've already spoken about culture fit. Does the person fit into your organization? That's the summary. Is this someone you want working in your organization? And then in terms of qualifications, what in terms of qualifications, what do you require for the job, right? So I've touched on this already. It is important to define your recruitment process. Defining your recruitment process would ensure that there's a seamless experience for your candidates. So you have to consider certain things. Where will your roles be published? Like I said, you could choose LinkedIn, you could choose WhatsApp. That's true. I didn't mention that you could choose WhatsApp. It could be a quick broadcast to your network. How many interview stages would this have? Would they be speaking to just you? If it's just you in the business for now, would they be speaking to just you, or they'll be speaking to other people as well? Um, who will conduct the interviews? What kind of assessments would you give? Apart from one-on-one interviews, there's a lot that goes on in the talent management space now. People use personality tests. People even use games to assess if the person would be fit for the role. What is the salary structure? How much are you looking to pay the person on the job? And is it competitive enough to attract the kind of candidates you want? So your salary has to be competitive enough for them to say no to others and yes to you. And then how will you track this person? How will you track this person on the job? How will you track this person on the job? Yeah, sorry about that. How would you track the person and how will you manage them? So if a person comes in, how do you know if they're succeeding or if they're failing? That's what that means. What metric are you putting forward? So you hire a salesperson, you say, I need you to sell, 500 of, 500 sweaters, 500 kaftans. When they sell 300 within the given agreed time, then you know that they haven't done well on the job. So right where I picked off from, tracking and managing the candidate and the candidate experience is very important. So candidate experience is how people felt about the recruitment process. Were they satisfied? Do they have any issues about the recruitment process? Was it easy? Was it seamless, or was it difficult? So there are certain ways you can track this. You can have a form at each point. So, or you can have a form at the end of recruitment where they score on a scale of 1 to 100, or 1 to 10, 10 being fantastic and 1 being horrible. And then you can also ask them what exactly they didn't like about the recruitment process, right? So we're moving on to job descriptions now. I said earlier that the job description details everything about the job, right? And there's some fundamentals to attract candidates. What would make me click on a link, on your link, as opposed to the fashion, house next door, as opposed to the textile company next door? So a job description has the details of the company, who you are, what you do. Very important that they have those two things so that a candidate can, sometimes candidates remove themselves from the recruitment process, right? Because they see the details of the company and they're not necessarily interested. You want people like that to opt out of the process early so you don't have to spend time screening them as well. Also, you have a brief description of the job. What is required of this job? What would I be doing in this job? It's a summary. Here, you don't break down everything. You just have a brief description. This is what this job does. Moving on to job responsibilities. Now, this is where the detail is. They say the devil is in the detail. This is it. You have to outline about, I'd say 80% of what that person will be doing. If you can do 100%, yes. The truth is that sometimes at work, you might have to do a bit outside the scope of your job description, especially if it's a growing company, but you need to outline what a bulk of what that person will be doing. You don't want to misrepresent what the job is just because you want to get people in. Because what happens if somebody comes in and they're doing either more, less, or out of scope of their job description, they get disengaged with the job and they start looking to go elsewhere. The experience level has to be on the job description. Are you looking for someone fresh out of school? Are you looking for an intern? Are you looking for an experienced hire? These have to be stated in the job description. Technical requirements: what academic or professional qualifications do you need for this? And you'd see more recently people have what the company offers, because there's so many jobs open now. People are offering benefits to get candidates to come to their company. So you'd see things like the days of paid time off that you get. Some companies in some industries, like the technological industry, you get stock options. In some companies, you get free lunch, you get coupons, you get spa dates. You get, there's so many options now to serve as attraction to have people come to your company. So these are just some examples. Right, so I have a sample JD here. Let me pull that up. Okay, I have it here. So we have a fashion designer job description. This is the summary. This defines the role, right? A fashion designer is a professional who works in the world of fashion. Going quickly, yes, this is the job brief. What will the person be doing in quick words? Then we move down to the responsibilities. So this fashion designer is required to select fabrics and trims, create production sketches, collaborate with technical designers to ensure development packages, the requirements, like I said. And yes, some people frequently ask questions. What would I be doing on the job? What is required? So this is just a quick example. If you went on Google and put anything, whatever the role is, job description, you'd most likely see it. But it's more often than not, it's the manager that that crafts what the job description would be, So yes, moving right back. Yes, so the onboarding session. Onboarding employees, they're hired, now what? So you've gone through all of this, you've gotten 5 of the best creative designers in your company. What do you then do? So the purpose of onboarding is to ensure that the employee has a seamless transition into your company. You've hired them and now they're in your company. You want to make it as easy, because sometimes they're coming straight out of school, or they've been out of the workforce for a bit, or they're changing jobs. You don't want them to come into your company and already miss their old company on the first day. Maybe they came in, their work tools are not ready, nobody expected them to be there. Things like that rub people off the wrong way, and they're like, oh, maybe I should have just stayed where I was. And for the company, it ensures that we, or you as a company, or as the owner of a company, can transfer all the essential information to this new person. So imagine if you've never been to a country and you had a tour guide, for example, and onboarding sometimes is a tour of the company bit by bit. So there are some tips to make your employee feel welcome. One, let them know that you're anticipating their arrival. Send them an email a week before. Send them an email. In fact, you can send more than one email. Maybe when you're 2 weeks out, when you're 3 weeks out, we're excited to have you. We're ready for you. Things like that, just so they don't feel like they finished the recruitment process and they've been forgotten. Nobody knows, nobody's expecting me. Then you need to create an onboarding plan. Every unit will be responsible for something. If they need a computer, if they need a phone, if they need a desk, if they need a machine, if they need whatever it is they need, their tools for the job, anything from needles, whatever it is that they may require on the job, you want to make sure that you plan for them so they don't come in and feel completely unwanted or completely unprepared for. Right. So you need to plan beforehand. It's not a good look when they get there and then you're scrambling because nobody knew that they were coming. It just shows poor planning and it makes them feel unwelcome. And then you have to ensure that the JDs and KPIs are set. What's a KPI? It's a key performance indicator. This is how I know that you're doing well, and this is how I know you're not doing well. A job description, like we said, is is the details of what the job is. So those two things are really important. Whoever comes in needs to know what their job is, and what you expect of them. So of course you've discussed the KPIs prior. I mean the job description in the interviews. They know what the job is, but it's really important that you hand that to them along with their KPIs. And then you assign someone who can show them the ropes. It doesn't have to be a formal body program, but you need to have someone who can show them around, who can be their map. So any navigation they need is that person that they go to. It makes them feel a lot more comfortable because remember, they don't know anyone here, and even if they do, they're still new. They don't know the ins and outs of the company. Another thing is you don't want to overwhelm them. You don't want them to resume at 8 a.m., for example, and at 9, you're like, we have this order. It's for a bridal party. It has to go out in 24 hours. This is your desk. Get to work. You don't necessarily want to do that. Or we have XYZ pending orders. I need you to do this. It's a bit rattling for a new employee because they're still trying to navigate where they are. And then you have to be very open to feedback. Just like with the recruitment process, when it's done, you need to be open to feedback about how they felt after they resumed. You can do it at the first week mark, you can do it at the third week mark. Some people, because an onboarding is a long process, right? But you can have one-on-ones, you can have a quick survey, you can have a pulse check just to have a conversation with them. Oh, how are you feeling? How has the job been so far? Does it meet the expectations that you had in mind? This is your first week, by the way, so you can ask these questions. Did your manager explain what exactly you'd be doing? Things like that. There are a lot of questions that you can ask, not too many. Some people may not be honest in surveys just because they don't want to rub anybody off the wrong way, but you can have one-on-ones with them, make sure they feel comfortable. Yes, so managing teams. Everybody that you bring into the company will make up a team, right? Even if you're two people is a team. Doesn't matter how many people you have in your organization. It's the team. The team is the wheel. Everybody is. If it's operations team, finance team, the design team, whatever it is, you need to be able to manage teams. So here are a few tips. Communication is key. If there's no communication, there's fire on the mountain, because I don't know what my colleague is doing. I don't know what the person in the next department is doing. It's a big issue because we're not sharing information. It could be costly because I may go ahead to do something that my colleague has done just because I didn't know. So communication is very important within your team. And even as a manager, you must be able to communicate with your direct reports, your team. You know, if it's a really large organization, you communicate to the person right below you, and the structure, that person communicates to the person right below them. So you just have to cascade it. Communication is very key when it comes to managing teams. And then you, especially as the manager, need to be able to tell people this is where we're going and this is how we're getting there. So people want to be able to have a clear understanding of where they're going and how they're going to get there. So that's a very crucial duty for any leader, any manager, anybody who has any responsibility over a team. Explain to them where we're going and how we're going to get there and what their role is in getting there. If you do not do your job right, this is what happens, and then we cannot attain the bigger picture. You need to provide constructive feedback. Nobody's perfect, so there will be some lapses. You have to approach leadership with patience, with persistence, but you also have to be very you have to strike a balance, especially when it comes to emotional intelligence. So you need to be able to tell someone that yes, they did the job, but they didn't do it well. Yes, we have, X number of returns because this wasn't done well. Yes, we didn't make these sales because this wasn't done well. But when you're giving that feedback, make sure that you're giving an improvement technique. So you didn't do this right. This is what you should have done. This is what I expect next time. Then you need to monitor their progress. Say, you had an issue or somebody didn't meet up to what you had expected them to. You need to monitor them and see if they're getting better. Do they take the correction? Is there something that they need to do differently? Is there something that maybe you, the manager, need to do differently? Is there something that might even be going on with them that is impacting their performance? So you just need to monitor their progress. And for the people who are doing exceptionally well, you need to let them know that they're doing well. And you know that's because you're monitoring the progress. And the progress of teams can tell in a lot of ways. It can tell in your brand value, it can tell in your bottom line, it can tell in your finances. So you need to be able to coach your team. You need to be able to coach your team. Your team is, just think about it, basketball, football, whatever sport it is, that's a team. So you need to be their coach. You need to tell them, you need to celebrate them, you need to give them direction. You need to be empathetic. This is not sympathy. It's not the same thing as sympathy. You just need to put yourself in their shoes and try to see things from their view. So that's really what empathy is. And you need to celebrate your employees. Whatever you celebrate, whatever you reward, is most likely to continue. So you want to celebrate them, let them know that you appreciate all the work that they do and how they're impacting the business, how they're making the business grow and helping the business grow. So these are a few tips on how to manage a team. Like I said, it doesn't matter how large the team is, these tips will work for you. Yeah, so there are a few case studies and resources that will be shared afterwards. They're niche to the industry, to the fashion industry. You have things from Chanel, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and then there are also things that speak on corporate culture, especially in the fashion industry. I'm sure if it's quick fashion, if it's retail, if it's couture, whatever it is in the fashion industry, whatever you're offering in the fashion industry, I'm sure going through these resources would help you have a much broader and better view of what it is you need to do and just additional information to what I hope has been an enlightening session, an informative session. So yes, thank you, and I'll be looking forward to any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Onyekasola. That was very insightful. And at this time, we'll be having Cornelius to lead us in the second session, while you drop your questions in the chat box and it will be responded to when it's time for Q&A. So I don't know, Connie, can we have you now?
Yes, let me share my screen. Good afternoon, everyone from Nairobi, Kenya, and to all of you around Africa and the world. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. And today I will be speaking about how to set up and manage a team effectively. Perfect, there we go, we can all start. So I was introduced earlier in the many projects that I work on. I'm a fashion editor, I am a stylist, entrepreneur. I also do training. So as a creative, I just like to also show a bit of the work and projects that I work on. This is a client. We do a lot of makeovers for corporate clients. This is the same person. She's a lawyer. This is her before, and this is her after. So we like to see transformations. This is one project we've worked on. The next one here is a gentleman. He's a technical chief officer in a technical firm. This is his before and his after. So as stylists and my team and I really focus on image, first impressions, and these are just some of a few projects that we worked on that I thought I should share before we get into the session. And I shall start now. So tailoring your human resource to the specific needs of your fashion, textile, apparel, and accessories business. So what are the key points here? Especially as a fashion business, and a lot of you are, I think, are either fashion or creative entrepreneurs. So just as my colleague before who did the intro and who also spoke about HR issues, recruitment is very important, compensation policy, the work environment, and also training. So we'll get into those. So here are tips when you're hiring a fashion team. You need to have a recruiting strategy that's in line with your goals. So as a company and as a designer, if you want to hire like an assistant designer, what key skills do you want the person to have? You know, what level of education? What are some of the things they'll be doing? So what are their roles? So that this is the strategy you need to have in mind when you're hiring, you know, your assistant designer. Always look for references before hiring, very important. Always ask for references. Where have these people worked? Call up their references. If you need to get any records of them from, you know, either clearance certificates from, you know, whatever, whether it's police or whoever, always get that so you're sure about the people who you're hiring. And here, that's very important. Fashion is a very practical industry. So you want to focus on recruiting the skilled manpower, you know, for production, for sales, and marketing, for design. Always ask for a portfolio, especially if these people are coming in to work in the design and creative section. Always ask for a portfolio. These are mandatory for our creative section. So what are the unique skills for human resources in a fashion business? We'll start with the left, creativity. The people you're hiring need to be creative. They need to be able to do very concise research. They need to be up to date with trends and what's happening in the creative and fashion industry, both local and international. They need to be aware of the trends, the shows. I mean, there's so much under this. They need to be able to interpret trends that are relevant to the industry or to the country and the region that you're in. They need to be very detail-oriented. They need to have excellent sewing, production, you know, draping, pattern-making skills. And our industry is very visual, so they need to be able to draw and articulate the collection and the designs. They have to have in-depth knowledge of fibers and fabrics. For example, if you're designing an outfit for, you know, I'd say what a singer who's going to be singing in the Dubai desert, you know, this is not someone you're going to give velvet because obviously they'll, you know, sweat in it. So, you know, they need to be able to understand the location that, you know, the person they're designing is for, what they're going to be doing, and then adapt the kind of fabric that would work. They need to have key computer-aided skills, you know, the Photoshop, and all those pattern making, you know, programs that are now online. They need to have a good sense of style. You know, anyone who works in the fashion industry has to have a sense of style. They need to understand the fashion market. So these, you know, key skills, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, these 9 key skills are important for anyone, you know, who you're looking to hire in the fashion industry. So when you're recruiting a team specific to your business, these are the key things. Adaptability. The person needs to be able to be flexible and work under pressure. As you know, our fashion industry is a lot of deadlines, a lot of pressure. You know, things don't always go as planned. You know, you want to get certain fabric, it's not available, you have to change the plans. So you need someone who's flexible and adaptable. Personality is big. You know, you spend 90, I would say what, 80% of your time at work. So the people you want to work with, you know, they need to have a personality that is easy to get along. They're trustworthy, they're determined, and you can work with them. Working with people who are negative energy, always bad vibes or gossiping, it's too much. You don't have time for that. So be very careful about the people who you hire. It makes a difference, and their personalities. And then obviously we always hire for talent and uniqueness. You know, what key skills are these people bringing into the company and why must you have them? You know, there's some people who, when you hire after a week, you're like, I'm not sure I did the right thing. So when you're in the hiring process, look at and even ask them what's unique about them. Always, you know, they're also able to sell and tell you what's unique about them. This is really important. And finally, again, compatibility. These are people who you can work with. Again, 80% of your time is in the office. So these are people who are easy to work with. And you're able to, you know, work together on projects, and it's a good and, you know, they call it the good vibes environment. Now, training is also important. So you want to develop programs, you know, within your company and your brand, and so that you can train in on technology, you know, different things. There's so many new innovations every day. So you always want to be up to date in your team, and you know that you go for trainings or you bring in trainers so that you know you're always improving on your production of operations. Then you also want to develop systems for existing and new employees so that you determine their respective training needs. You know, every, you know, key business owner is able to see what skills are required, but also ask your team members, what skills would they want, you know, to improve on, what kind of trainings do they need? Always ask them, because feedback is great, and then they can tell you what else they would want. And then soft skills training, courses on sales and marketing for your team members who are in sales, you know, that also helps. Now, compensation policy, this is also important. Perform reviews of salary reviews, this is also important, and to ensure workers are remunerated competitively. And also incorporate an incentive system based on employees' performance of bonuses. Normally, this is done at the end of the year, where employers give, you know, salaries, and then they add a little of a bonus, you know, at the end of the year to appreciate the team who've been working hard throughout the year. So, you know, in a lot of cases, when I have spoken to some of my friends who work in design, instead of going for a big, you know, Christmas lunch at the end of the year, they opt to give their employees bonuses, you know. So different people work differently, but one designer told me that her employees preferred a bonus rather than going for a Christmas dinner. You know, they preferred the money. So just, you know, always talk to your employees and, you know, ask them, would you prefer to go for a Christmas or end year party, have one, or have bonuses? Then you're able to relate to them, and then they can articulate actually what they want. Now, in the work environment, it's very important, especially since you're working with machines, to implement safety and security measures. Make sure you have a first aid box. Make sure you've trained people on how to do first aid. You know, you have signs and, you know, signage in the, you know, the production room about, you know, how to use the equipment and what to do in case of an emergency. And it's very important that you have proper job descriptions so that everyone knows what is expected of them and you're avoiding any confusion. And always have an open door policy so that, you know, there's, you know, a lot of, you know, communication and productivity, and everyone's on the same page. And if there's a problem, you know, it's not like you have, you know, the worst thing is to have employees hugging in a corner and talking about you as the, you know, as the head, you know, head of the brand, that they, you know, they can't do this and this. You'd rather have employees who can actually articulate what their problems are and can speak to you. And finally, hold regular either team buildings or anything, you know, or you can have days where you just have staff, you know, give you feedback, and, you know, in a departmental, you could call it team buildings, where people can just sit and relax and reduce their work stress, and, you know, also just network and just share ideas on how they can improve and strategize for the company. Now, unique human resources need for fashion enterprises. So it's important to treat your team as human capital and invest in rewards beyond salaries. Invest in technology. There's one offering HR tech services, e.g. Wovu, which I'll show you later. This is a very good one that's found on any operating system, whether it's Apple or Androids, and it helps in HR operations. Develop empathy, communication, and trust, so that, you know, when your employees tell you they have a problem, listen and try and work with them to see how best you can support them in the problem that they're having. You always need to upgrade the skills of the whole team. Your brand needs to have an online strong presence. So whoever is handling your social media needs to be very concise, and you need to train them on what you want to communicate about your brand. Then you need to rethink strategies to attract and maintain talent of millennials and Gen Zs, because as we know, you know, maximum is 6 months to a year with these millennials and Gen Zs, and they're gone. So you need to figure out a way to work with these generation to keep them engaged, to keep them happy, and to maintain them, right? That's the biggest challenge that, a lot of, employers have, and even I am an employer, I have a team, and that's also what I deal with. So I try and engage them and see what works best for them, and we try and work, with them. We're creative, so we need to give a bit of room in the creative environment. So this is a program I found online. It's called Volvo. It's in any Android or Apple system, as I said. So this is a mobile phone-based worker engagement platform that features anonymous worker voice tools, surveys, HR tools, announcements, payslips, anything. It's an amazing platform that you should all check out. So if you're, one of your team members, has a suggestion, but they want to be anonymous, they can put it here. It's able to track the payslips, HR tools. It's an amazing tool. So it's called Wovo, that's WOVO. And it helps run your operations, within your systems. So what are the challenges that face an employee or an employee in the workplace? What are some of the past challenges? In terms of the do's and don'ts in growing your team, you need to, in terms of do's, stick to an ideal hiring model. Basically, always have a structure when you're hiring. As I said earlier, do your references, a job description, do background checks, very important. Create a cloud-based system for all your documents, whether it's the Google Drives, the Sheets. So whenever you have someone joining in, then they are able to easily access this document and understand. And you always need to have, I call it the brand book about your company, where anyone who's been onboarded understands what the company is, what the brand, what it represents, the do's and don'ts. It's very important. So you need to encourage teamwork, recognize the value of each team member and what they bring in, and involve your team in the goal setting process. I will stress on this. The more you involve your team, the more they feel part of the brand, and the more they want the brand to excel, and they'll give ideas. And then understand the importance of testing and sampling. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes not always, but it's always important. Hire the right people and try and manage your costs as much as possible. So these are the things you want to avoid, taking all the credit. It's very important to always credit your team members, whether you're tagging them on social media, on your Instagram, or whether you're talking about them, or, it's very important to make sure that everyone feels a part of the team. Don't play a favorite, don't compromise on quality. Don't forget to ensure the customer is satisfied. Always follow up and make sure that your customers received the best service that they can, and don't ignore conflict and micromanagement. If there's a conflict within your team, you need to try and manage it, and don't ignore it, because the more you ignore it, the more it manifests, and it becomes a whole drama that is something that is unnecessary in the workplace. So I put together a roadmap of how to set up a fashion business. So if you look here, it really shows you basically everything on, creating a marketing plan, you're finding your niche, you're pricing your products, you're knowing your audiences, how to name and create your brand assets, you're registering your business, that's company registration. Pricing is also very key. You're designing and sourcing your products. You're working on your distribution of your products. You're marketing your clothing brand. I mean, it's literally everything. So this is a key roadmap that I created that will really help you as you work on sprucing up your business. And if you think there's any step that has been omitted based on your experience, probably in the Q&A you can add it in, and we can discuss it. So I'll go through it again. Marketing plan is important. Finding your niche, knowing your audience, pricing your products, naming and creating your brand assets, registering your business, designing and sourcing your products, marketing your clothes, and how your social media marketing and strategy, and distribution of your products. So again, if there's anything you think we've missed, we can discuss that during the Q&A session. So what are the major roles in a fashion company? There's so many, but I just listed a few. We have designers, pattern makers, tailors, production, quality control managers, CFO, finance officers, accountants, social media or a publicist, admin assistant, a marketing director, a sales manager, inventory manager, visual merchandiser, human resource, legal. If you note here, we said here that some of these roles can be done by the same person in smaller companies. So basically, maybe your human resource manager can also do legal and sort of the contracts. Your admin assistant can also probably help in, maybe she can do that / She can work on the social media. So smaller brands normally have team members do 1 or 2 roles at, at a time, so they're able to manage also on costings. So I want to end with this video, which I think is really important about how to set up a fashion business. So I'm not sure if it will show here or if I need to share my screen. I think, let me just, hold on 1 second. Let me just do it directly from YouTube to ensure everyone is able to see it. Can everyone see it?
I think there was a week.
Can everyone see it? I just see a yes or a no, then I know before I play it. You can? Perfect. So this is a designer from England. Her name is Zoe Jordan, and she was interviewed by the Business of Fashion. This is BOF is a platform that literally, is a big, within the fashion industry. I mean, they're a platform that really are able to network. I mean, it's a great fashion platform. If you're not following them, you should, because they have all the information about the fashion industry around the world and what's happening. And they had an interview with her about setting up her business. So I'll just start it.
Between when I'd left the city, I think there was a week between when I'd left the city and got on a plane to Thailand to go and source silks, Hong Kong to go look for hardware, and then we were back in London. I've learned as I've gone and worked with pattern cutters that has helped me along the way. Once we created that set of samples, the samples were in the back of the car. We were driving from store to store, going in store, showing them the samples and started building that way. For me, my girl, she's got a natural confidence to her. I don't limit her by age or a particular look. It's more about an attitude. And I think she does have that kind of boyish elegance to her. She wasn't perhaps driven by the seasons so much. Her life exists outside of that. And that's where we went about creating a collection that wasn't drawn to a particular season, but it was seasonless. And that seems to have made quite a big impact to our business. Knit Lab is a collection of cashmere cutouts. Essentially, we found our hero product. And I think that's a really crucial thing for a young brand to do as early on as possible. We've been able to identify that through working with the stores, and then been able to launch it as a bigger offering, bigger capsule collection. I think one of the key takeaways that I would kind of like to pass on to a young designer is that for me, I've always held the stores as paramount. They're the most important person to me, that relationship with the buyer. You've got to treat them as a partner rather than selling and then forgetting about it till next season. And just really listening to what they want, any feedback. That's how you can get great feedback on your customer as well. One of the hardest things is production. Getting your production to prioritize you, even though you're doing minimums, probably takes up a lot more time than you would envisage at the beginning. I'm still trying to get them. It's bribery, gifts, and chocolate. We go and see them. It's about, again, treating them like a business partner. When we get an award from the BFC, that we share that with them and that they feel part of the journey with us. I think there's a certain time span to a brand. I think there's a natural progression that you need to embrace. Early on, you just want it all right now. And actually, your business probably is not ready to work with those kind of department stores until you've had a good few seasons under your belt. I think you have to be a little bit patient with the growth. You really need to manage your cash flow carefully. That is every brand's kryptonite. Working with River Island has been really an enjoyable experience. I've really enjoyed the design challenge aspect of it and just learning a little bit more about a different area of the industry. River Island presents us with a great opportunity to introduce the line to a brand new audience. My advice personally would be that if it's something that you really feel strongly about, that it's in your heart, that you can't stop thinking about, that you've got to just dive in. It's important you have that risk appetite, have some resilience. There's certainly a lot of up and downs along the way, but you need to be ready to enjoy the journey.
So from the video, just key things, I'll just go through them again. So Zoe Jordan, it's a British brand and that deals with graphic cashmere. They design it to be worn anytime, anywhere. The brand also has done a collaboration with River Island. That's a brand in England that does women's wear and menswear. So I'll go through the key lessons that she talked about. Number 1, always define and understand your customer, very important. Number 2, identify your hero product. So another word for hero product would be your bestseller products, the ones that you know are your bestsellers, and then you know when you produce them, even after 5 seasons, they will always be your bestsellers and they will always sell. So these are your very key that you identify them, because these are ones that will help create your profit margins, because these are your bestsellers. You just bring them out in different styles, in different colors, but they're always your bestsellers. Number 3, build partnerships with retailers. So these are retail outlets where your brand, can be sold, very important. Number 4, know and build relationships with your production partners. These are the people who are working on your production. And finally, manage your growth carefully. It's a process. Be patient and you'll succeed. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Connie. Thank you very much, Oyinkansola, for that amazing presentation. So right now we're going to be having the questions and answers. So it's a good time for you to drop your questions and I'll read them to the hearing of our facilitators. So I think I'll start with the first one because we don't have so much time. How do you find a balance between empathy and pushing people to grow, especially when you can see they have more potentials than they are utilizing or exploring? Oyinkansola or Connie, who would like to answer this question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please, can you turn on your video so that we can see you? Sorry.
Right, can you see me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, can you run the question back?
Okay. How do you find a balance between empathy and pushing people to grow, especially when you can see they have more potentials than they are utilizing or exploring?
Okay, so like I had said, that empathy is not sympathy. It's just the capacity to comprehend and empathize another person's feeling. So you can push someone towards even greater heights while still being empathetic. So say it could be in the work structure, for example. So it could be in the tasks that they're assigned to. First of all, it comes to communication. You need to speak to this person and understand, make sure that you're not actually misunderstanding what their future is shaped as. What you might think they want may not necessarily be what they want. And that is one of the pillars of empathy. It's communication. Have a conversation with that person and understand if what you think they can do is what they want to do. Number 1. Number 2, they might not feel like they have the capacity for that. So it's also your job as a manager to explain to them and let them know that, look, you can't do this and this is how. So I'd say that those are 2 things. You need to be sure that that's what they want, and it's always in the communication. It's in the communication, right? You can also put processes in place, and don't go full throttle. Take it in bits and not in chunks. So that would be my advice.
Thank you very much. So let's have the second question. How often do you recommend team meetings? That's from Felix. How often do you recommend team meetings?
Team meetings. It really does depend on the stage of your business, the size of your business, the distribution of your business. Are you all in the same location? Are you around the world? Are you virtual? But I'd say a meeting once a week, allows everyone to touch base once a week. That way they can escalate whatever they may not have escalated. Perhaps it wasn't a grade 1 escalation, but these team meetings not only help with updates, but also help with FaceTime, because there's some things that you cannot really interpret over email. So I'd say that once a week is a good spot until otherwise. If everybody has proven that they can be accountable, then maybe fortnightly. But I think once a week is fine, depending on the type of your business.
Thank you very much.
Hi,
Connie,
yeah, sorry, actually, I wanted to say I've seen a question in the chat that I wanted to address, and it's from Hortense Mbaya. What are the true and tested models for African fashion businesses? Because in our context is different and Western models will not work for most of us. So my response to this is the fundamentals are the same. Defining and understanding your customer, that cuts abroad, whether it's a Western brand or an African brand. Identifying your key products that are best sellers, again, that will work across the, whether it's a local or international brand. Building partnerships. The partnerships could be with your, you know, whether if you're not working with great retailers, these are your suppliers, the people who are providing fabrics for you, your zippers, your buttons. You need to build relationships with them, and then they can be able to supply you credit so that you don't pay immediately, that you have like a 20, 30-day, you know, credit terms. Knowing your partners, you know, same thing, managing growth carefully. You know, as the designer Zoe Jordan said, that's a concept, whether it's local, international business, that works. So again, Hortense, the business fundamentals work both for local and international businesses.
thank you very much, Connie. I wanted to actually push this question to you. What key roles are required for an effective structure, especially for a fashion business?
I think going back to my presentation, you know, production is design, so creative team. The design team, whether it's you alone or you have an assistant designer. Production team is really, really essential. So these are your tailors, your seamstresses, draping, whoever is working on the production team, whether you do samples and then you outsource it, you know, the pattern makers, or you have freelancers, though that is also really essential. So I'd say design, production, and sales, because there's no point of having great products and you're not selling and marketing them. So I would say all these teams work hand in hand.
Thank you very much. I know that Oyinkansola talked about education, and somebody is asking a question. Adedokun Olateju says that, thank you for the session. How do you manage staff that have little or no formal education? I know that this is very peculiar in the fashion industry. A lot of the people that work with fashion designers have little or no formal education. So in this kind of situation, how do you manage people like that?
That's an interesting question. So so long as formal education is not required for the job, right? So it's not a thing, it's not a trade-off. If you require formal education for the role, that's what you should get. If you do not require formal education for the role, then we should be focusing on the person's skills. So when the person, I'm not sure the context the person is asking in, do they mean in managing day to day? Do they mean in communication? Do they mean in accountability? So what part of managing, you know, the person that doesn't have formal education is an issue? I'd appreciate if the person can expatiate on that. But just like with everybody else, it's communication. You might have to speak a bit more and a bit more frequently and consistently. You might have to be clearer in what it is that you want, timelines, and the quality you require, right? So the terms have to be simplistic. Sometimes you have to show, like, this is what I want. You know, you've done this before. You did this 3 weeks ago. Do you remember? Exactly the same thing. Or we're changing this pleat, or we're changing, you know. So I say that that's how you can manage someone who doesn't have formal education for a role that doesn't require it. But if they want to ask, you know, further questions on that, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Oyinkansola. Connie, please, I would like to have your input on this question. When I need staff, but my company cannot afford salary, I understand that a lot of companies on this call are SMEs who are just working alone, a standalone company, they don't have anybody that works with them. So in this kind of situation, I need a staff, but I can't afford it. What do I do, please? The question is coming from Maria.
There's different ways to work around it. It's probably maybe you can work out an agreement of, you know, you trade skills. Maybe if it's someone like, let's say it's you want to hire an assistant designer, but you cannot afford them. Maybe you can come up to an agreement where, you know, they can work for you for a certain period of time. And instead of giving them, you know, money, you can see what other option of things that you can give them. Maybe you can give them, a certain amount of, airtime or social media exchange or a barter trade, or you can give them a certain amount of brand products. There's always ways to work around it, because what I always encourage designers to do, maybe in terms of, let's say you want to do a photo shoot, but you can't afford it, then why don't you partner with a photographer, makeup artist, and you do it in exchange for, you'll give them, some of your brand products. So there's always ways to work around it. It's just about being creative about how you can create a partnership. So you just need to sit down with the person and say, look, I need to work with you, but I can't afford you. What other way can we do together? And then people are willing to compromise and figure out a plan.
Thank you very much, Connie. I would also like you to answer this question. Apologies, actually. How do you manage workers that come below your standard? But with your help, you are able to train them and get them better, and less than a year, the person leaves. I guess this person is trying to talk about retention strategy. So what do you do in this kind of situation, especially for you, Connie, that is working in the fashion industry? I know that you have probably experienced something like this. So what's your advice to this kind of person?
Okay, so I'll speak from experience for my agency, because it's happened to me. I had someone last year, January, and by December they had resigned because they wanted to go and do their own brand. So what I always do is I always have a plan of an intern. So I have a team, and then at least I have 1 to 2 interns, right? So in case someone resigns, at least the interns have been in the team, so they already know what's going on. So it's a smooth transition, and it's not too bad, because the thing is, people will go. You can't stop them from going. The thing as a brand is to always have a plan. So I always tell people at least have 1 to 2 to 3 interns in different departments. So if one person from the department leaves, then it's a smoother transition, because the intern already knows the structure of the company, rather than trying to start again, because training takes time. Training takes time. By the time someone understands the operation, it's probably 3 to 6 months. So I always say get interns. And even with these interns, at least treat them well. And also give them something. In this day and age, it's tough for, I know interns, people say, work for free, but for my company, I pay interns because they're giving inputs into the company. The better you treat a staff, remember what I showed earlier, if you treat people with respect, they'll want to work. So I pay my interns and I retain them. So when one person leaves, then I'm able to just, transition the intern into a role.
Thank you very much. Oyinkansola, please, I'd like you to assist with this question. Then I'll also take a bit on Connie also. For small businesses in Africa, what are the realistic incentives for employees?
For small businesses, I like how specific the question is. For small businesses, what incentives can you put in place? When it comes to incentives, sometimes a one size fits all doesn't work. Sometimes you actually have to ask, right? So can this small business afford something like lunch? Is that something that they can afford? Can they afford something like airtime? Apart from the airtime that you use for the day-to-day operations, is that something that they can afford? Can you afford a small get together, maybe once every quarter? Is that something you can afford? It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be something that the employees, your employees, that particular group would appreciate. So those are some ideas that I would have for a small. When I say small, I'm thinking, say 10 and below, right? So of course you don't have the funding, you don't have the big funding for, an employee retreat or group hangout and things like that. But the group hangout doesn't have to be large. It could be small. It could be, a team bonding activity. So I'd say those are some of the incentives that we can put forward for a small business.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you have any other thing to add, Connie, before I take this question.
So I'll tell you what I do for my company, especially when we work on weekends, because sometimes we work on weekends and we can work throughout the weekend. So I always give them a day off. So everyone takes a day off in the week, and that's what they look forward to. So when they have to work the whole weekend, then I give them a day off. So every person has a day off, and it's amazing how people like days off. It's not a big deal, but people love it, Yeah. So that's something that's non-monetary that people can look forward to, Yeah.
Thank you very much. So there's this question, and I'm directing it to Connie. When you are a one-man team, you fall short of focusing on certain aspects of your business. What would you suggest a business owner should prioritize, and in which order when it comes to business structure?
I started off as a one-man show, so I totally understand. So for my business, how I started off was I had the basics of the services that we were offering, from styling, to training and everything. Once you have that basics in store, then you're able to see what you need to get help with or outsource. So obviously I'm a creative, I'm not an accountant. So I am, my numbers, I know the basics, but I just get someone to, I outsource accounting. I need some documents done. Contracts are really important in any business structure. It doesn't matter whether you're creative. So always have some templates for your, the contracts. If you don't have those, at least outsource those. So these are some of the things I'm saying. If you can't afford a lawyer, then get I'm sure you can get a friend who's a lawyer, then you can exchange. You're like, look, do these contracts for me and I'll give you merchandise. People always like, people like free stuff. So those are the things, those are incentives. You're like, do my contracts and I'll give you free merchandise. It's always a compromise about how you can work each other. So once you're able to just figure out and list the key things, then you can see who you can outsource, what you can pay for, what you want to do in exchange, barter exchange, and that's how it works.
Thank you very much, Connie. I see in the chat box that a lot of people are asking questions as standalone business owners who are like the all-in-all in their business. So in this situation, how do they address burnout? I see a lot of questions like that, and I'm just trying to summarize so that I can attend to everybody. So how do you address burnout in this kind of situation?
I have suffered from burnout many times. Again, I'm an entrepreneur. So what is the formula? I'm still trying to get it, I'll be honest. But what I really intentionally do is I take my weekend seriously. So unless we have to work on the weekend, I don't work. And if we do work, you've seen how we'd all take a day off in the week. It's something that you just have to figure out a work-life balance. Let me put it that way. There is no structured formula because on entrepreneurs, especially those who are single, you're the accountant, you're the designer, you're the sales, you're the social media, you're everything. So what I would say is just have a kind of a timetable and be very focused during the week. Put your goals for the week, what you need to achieve between Monday and Friday, 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, whatever hours, so that you can take time on the weekends. Because we as entrepreneurs, we always suffer from burnout, but I have learned to manage it by really focusing. I work really hard during the week and then I take a break on the weekend. I'm still trying to figure it out, but that's the best that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so there's a question here. I once hired somebody who left my business after learning all my technicalities and went to implement in her business. Can I send her to court? This person wants to send somebody to court, so let's know. So what do you suggest in a time like this? You hire somebody, you train the person learns all your skills, everything about your business, and goes to start a business and implements it. And what do you think is the way forward for this kind of business owner?
Okay, I think we'll both comment on it. For me, I'll say this happens all the time. Honestly, it does, especially as creatives. We have people who go, my friend had someone who went and started off a similar business, and the level was cheaper of the clothes. So you can imagine how she felt. Number one, if you have some time and money to take someone to court, fine. Because, legal proceedings, in our country like Kenya, it takes a while and it also takes money. What I would say is, this is why once you understand your business model, you can keep on revising and redeveloping your brand strategies, because someone can take can take away your, ideas, but they can't take your skills. That's why I'm saying it's very important to understand your business, because just an example like me, there's a lot of projects I'm doing and I've seen people doing similar ones, but you see, they don't know the genesis of the projects and what I have in mind for the future. Like no one knows my 2023 plans, it's only me, right? So, people will copy you, it's normal. But again, once you know your strategy, you always just rebrand, redevelop, change your strategy, and you move on, because it's going to happen. But if you have time and money to go and sue someone, then I guess go ahead.
Thank you very much, Connie. Onyinkan Sola, I know that you are an expert in culture and employee engagement. I think this question is best suited for you. If a team has developed a bad work culture, how can you remedy that? A bad work culture.
A bad work culture. That sounds like you need to go back to the drawing board. So let's say for example, the bad work culture in this case is everybody shows up late. Doors open at 10, people are waltzing in at 11:30, 11. First of all, as the business owner, you need to be clear. It's always very important that you know what culture it is you want for the business. So if what you want is directly opposite, that means the practices, the policies, and the processes are the opposite of what you want. So your rewards have to be linked to the culture you want, and also the punitive, the opposite of rewards, the punitive measures also have to match. So you need to, first of all, communicate. Let everyone in your team, even if it's a small team, let them know that this is where we're supposed to be and this is where we are. This is what I'm noticing. This is what I'm picking up from the team, and it cannot continue this way. This is where I need us to head, and this is what we need to do, right? It's also important because sometimes culture goes the wrong way because the people there don't understand what's supposed to be happening. So you need to have a conversation with them as well. But you're also a leader, so you need to lead, right? Make sure that you are modeling the right thing. That's very important because people would go ahead with what you do more than what you say. That's number one. And number two, you need to take action after communicating. Make it clear. This is what happens. Doors open at 10. I need everybody in by 9:30. Else, this is what will happen. Else, you're going to have to work 30 minutes extra. Or in fact, that may not be a good enough conversation, because some people will say, well, I don't mind working a bit later, right? If this happens, this benefits you will no longer be eligible for. You have to walk the talk as well, right? Culture is very, there's a lot to it, right? So it really depends on what exactly it is.
Thank you very much, Onyinkan. I don't know if Connie is still on the call. Please kindly confirm, but okay, let's just move on. Somebody is saying that the toughest recruitment for us as fashion designers is tailor recruitment. I give employment contracts, I keep my side, but these people don't respect contracts. How do we undo this? So I don't know if Onyinkan can help with this. I know I've heard several complaints about tailors, so how do they handle this kind of situation?
So when you say contract, there's the verbal contract, right? I know the fashion industry is different from any other industry, because in any other industry, this is an actual contract. It's a legally binding document. And if somebody were to go outside the confines of the contract, just like the person was saying earlier, they could be liable to a lawsuit, right? So what contracts are they breaching? Number one. Number two, is it employees that are breaching this contract, or is it vendors? Is it contractors? If you found them unreliable, are you looking for alternatives to using them? Because they're costing you. The people who are reneging on their contracts are costing you. So are you going to look for alternative vendors? Right? Are you going to put clauses in your contract that if you do not deliver on time and in full, I'm going to get X number for refunds. I'm going to get, so what are you putting in those contracts? I'm thinking like actual contracts. With verbal contracts, people can renege and there's really nothing you can do, but you want to surround yourself with people who have proven themselves to be reliable. So that would be my answer to that question.
Thank you very much, Connie. Thanks, you're back. Somebody's asking this question. The toughest recruitment for us, she's saying the toughest recruitment for them so far is recruiting for a fashion designer. Recruiting for a tailor. And they give employment contracts and they try to keep their own side, but these people eventually don't keep their own side of the bargain. So how do they handle this kind of situation? Hi, Connie, can you hear me? Oh, I guess a network is not too good. Okay, somebody is saying disaster. Okay. Oh, I think Connie's network is not really good at this time. Okay, Oyin Consola, I don't know if you can answer this question. I actually pay 90% of their salary.
And
Okay.
again, so tailors, right?
Oh, sorry, I can hear you
Yeah.
now, Connie. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can. I'm having an internet problem, so you'll just bear with me.
Yeah, I see.
So I think, yeah, so I think what you said was that the question is about hiring tailors.
Yes, hiring tailors. They give contracts, they keep to the outside of the bargain. Why these tailors don't? How do they handle this kind of situation?
That's a problem. I think that's a problem everywhere with tailors. I think for me that I think the thing would be just to have a variety of, always have a backup plan of tailors. You have the people who you've hired, whether it's 2 or 3 tailors, and then always have a backup plan of maybe 2 or 3 more in your database, who you give to work to maybe once in a while, and they can do work according to your standard, so that if one of these other people mess up, tailors, then you can refer to them. Because tailors, I say they're creatives. Sometimes they just wake up and don't come to work for 1 week, and then they'll appear after 3 weeks. I don't know what happens with them. My suggestion, just always have a supply of tailors in your database for a backup.
I think your response now would apply to this person who is saying, I recently recruited a tailor. It's been barely 2 weeks. We agreed on a bi-weekly payment. So far, I've had to pay for his transportation, and he keeps saying he has no money to come to work. I'm not sure if this is the norm and whether or not it is a sustainable model. What would you advise?
Well, that's definitely not sustainable. If within 2 weeks you already have problems, let him go, get others. That's what I'm saying. You need to have at least 5 to 6 tailors in your database. So if one gives you a problem, you move on to the next.
Thank you very much, Connie. I think we'll take the last question before we call it a wrap for today. And okay, let me have this. How do you manage your emotions with work, especially when you're heartbroken and you have a lot on your desk and less time?
I think that's more about the work-life balance. We all have many things going on at the same time, but I think when it's time to work, however you're feeling, sometimes you're feeling down or you're dealing with other emotions, you have to focus on your business. Your business needs you. If you put in 50% in your business, you'll get 50%. If you put in 100%, you'll get 100%. So I think there's a time and place for everything. If you need to vent, scream, cry, maybe do it after work or before work. But when it's time for work, again, just work, because what you put in is what you're going to get out. That's my advice.
Thank you very much, Connie. I think we should just take this last one. Somebody was asking a question relating to evaluation. There are just 2 staff that work. How do you evaluate these people's performance? So based on your experience, what's your advice in this kind of situation?
So I have a form that we do. We normally do a review every 6 months, with the staff, because I also have a lean team. And with that, we're able to track how the team members are doing. Then they also give us their input as to what, they would like to do more or what they're having challenges with. So that's how I track my team. I just do a review every 6 months. I don't know any other way, but I think that's the best, because then we're able to track, because also once they know what their job description and deliverables are, then once we look at their, we track them on these evaluation forms, and we're able to just see where the gaps are.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Connie. Thank you very much, Oyin Consola. The session was very, very enlightening, and I'm sure that the participants can also bear witness to the fact that it was a great session. Thank you so much.